Everybody online is telling you to build multiple streams of income, but nobody is telling you what happens after you do. This video is for you if you want to build multiple streams of income and you feel like you have no time, or if you are knee deep in it and you are simply over the hustle. I want to talk about how to build multiple streams of income without ruining your lifestyle. I've been thinking about building multiple income streams for as long as I can remember. I remember sitting at my desk when I took my first job after graduating from college, and I was already thinking, like, what else is there? Like, I was started immediately researching what are some other things I can be doing. And partly, I think that's because I went to school and I got a whole degree, and then I realized that the job was extremely boring. And so I think my mind was always just moving and searching and looking for something a little more exciting. And I was probably a little naive in thinking that I was going to find that in the corporate world. But anyhow, that's where I was at. And I was just sick of doing work that I just wasn't inspired to do. Like, I was going through the motions. So I just started looking for other things to do. And so first thing I did was I was into fashion at the time. I started a fashion blog and I started taking sewing classes, and I just really immersed myself in that world. And then I realized with the blogging that because at the time I had a blog, Instagram had just gotten started. I don't even think there was Instagram. No, there wasn't. There was Facebook. And so I really didn't have a mechanism to become visible. And so I was working really hard, but it just went nowhere essentially because I was unknown. I was invisible to people. And I think it was because it was before social media really got going where you could do all these posts and push yourself and push your post and promote yourself and all that. It was kind of before that. So I it was kind of hamster wheelie. I was like, I'm doing a lot of work here and still nobody knows me. So I kind of let that go. And then the very next thing I did, I actually chilled for several years, just climbed the corporate ladder and went that route. And then I finally mustered up the courage and the money to pull the trigger and buy my first property. So once I got into real estate, we just kept buying and buying and buying. And what used to be really easy and really simple became very complex. And now where we are, we have 90 doors and it's a full-time job, right? I need multiple employees to help me run this thing efficiently. And I'm starting to see that the easy money that was supposed to come from real estate is not actually that easy. So I was in of the mindset that we need more properties, and that I'm not going to be able to quit my job and leave these mundane roles that I've been taking. I'm not ever going to be able to do that until I get my portfolio to a size where it can pay for all of our living expenses. And so I was like, let me speed this up. So right around 2020, the coaching business was booming online. And I'm like, why not? Why not put myself out there? I was actually laid off in 2020. And then I joined like a software engineering immersive. And what ended up happening was at the end of the program, I got a job within 30 days. And many of my colleagues in the program, they're probably still looking for work to this day. So I knew at that moment, I was like, okay, maybe career coaching is a thing. I've been a people manager. I've job hopped for years at this point. And so I'm like, let me go down that path. And it was cool while it lasted. I was getting clients. It was fun. I was really marketing myself heavily on LinkedIn. And so it was pretty easy to get clients. But I'll say easy, not simple. What ended up happening with that side hustle, it was just the Zoom fatigue and the consistent marketing and sales fatigue. It was like, if I didn't show up, there were no clients. If there were no clients, there were no money. And I was like, I can't, like, how do I make this sustainable? And I just really started to look at the pattern. It's like every side hustle or side income that I try to build, they all have their demons. It's like none of these things are easy. It's almost like choose your hard. You hear people say all these things are hard. Choose which hard you're going to deal with. So when I let that go, I pretty much was like, I'm just going to chill. I'm just going to improve the real estate business, get it functional, and just focus my efforts between that and my corporate job. But the feeling of how do I get out of corporate is still never left. So one of my very good friends, she was actually one of those crazy people who had two corporate jobs, like while everybody was remote. And I was thinking to myself, I was like, I could do that because I'm in a remote role. It's not that much energy. I could probably parlay a second job. And then I was talking to a couple of people in my network and they were like, why are you looking for a second job? Like, you don't want to do that. Why are you looking for a second job? Why are you not doing anything with your personal brand? Because at this point, I had about 15,000 followers on LinkedIn. I had an email list. It's like I had put in all the groundwork and I was really willing to just walk away from it all. And when I started to think about it, I was like, I guess you're right. I mean, is it worth it to, do the context switching and have to be doing all this hopping around to work two different corporate jobs if you can still make thousands of dollars on your own from your personal brand? So I'm like, okay, let's see. But I knew one thing for sure. I was like, I have to build this one differently. Like, I'm not going to hustle. I don't have it in me. I'm in a different season. And I'm like, there has to be a way. So I just been searching, searching, searching. And so the first thing I put in place is if you're going to work a job while you're doing it, you have to have a job that gives you freedom and flexibility. If you need to be in the office every day, you have to plan for that. If you have a high maintenance boss or you have a high maintenance job where you need to be readily available, like your Slack goes off and you need to respond immediately, you need to plan around that. And so I think that's a mistake that a lot of people make. They just jump in feet first and they're like, doing whatever they want to do and building whatever business or whatever income they want to build, not realizing that it may or may not work, for how their job is set up. And I think that's the crucial mistake. So that's the very first thing. Like, how is your life actually set up? What time do you have to put towards something? And don't fall into the delusion of like overworking, overcommitting, like, oh, I'm going to work all day and then I'm going to work all night. No, you're not. You're going to do it for a couple of months and then you're going to give up and quit. And so it's like, what is the reality? So what I settled on is really looking at my life and saying, what am I actually doing? Like when I look back at the other things that I tried. So fashion, I loved it, but I was working in the engineering role and then coming home and trying to turn on this creative role. And I wasn't necessarily doing fashion, right? It was optional. It wasn't something I was already doing. And so the career coaching was the same thing. It was something I could do. It wasn't something I was actively doing. And so when I came back, I was like, what am I actively doing? I'm trying to run this real estate business. I'm trying to make it as profitable as possible. And ironically, I went to see Emma Gree a couple of weeks ago, and she really she cemented the thinking. She's like, I don't try to create content. I don't try to do any of that. The content revolves around what I'm already doing, so it doesn't feel like an action, an extra load. And so that's exactly what the real estate afforded me. It's like I'm already in meetings every week. I'm already dealing with stuff every day. I'm already building systems. I'm already doing all the things. All I need to do is turn on the camera and start recording and sharing everything I'm learning with people. And that's a way to bring my personal brand back to life. And maybe I can monetize myself in that regard, as opposed to, picking something that I'm interested in, but it doesn't really fit into what I'm doing every day. And so when I had that light bulb moment, I'm like, I'm going to do something that's fitting into what I'm actually doing. And so all of the, any marketing, any products that I create, anything that I do, I was already going to do it anyway. And I'm like, that's the sweet spot. I think that's people who are trying to build multiple streams of income, because if you're doing some passive stream where, you're investing in REITs or you're just investing in stock market, this is not necessarily for you. But if you're thinking about starting a business or putting yourself out there and doing something that requires some sort of mental, physical, emotional labor from you, it has to be something you're already doing, something that's already a part of your life, because the business part is already extra effort. You don't want, the thing to be effort too. And I think that's the trap. So I got 6 things I wrote down. I'm on vacation and here I am recording because, I'm always thinking about business. I'm always thinking about what can I do next? Like I'm actually motivated and my energy comes from doing stuff like this. So I'm like, if I have an idea, I'm sitting here by the pool, I'm gonna share it. And so the 6 things that I came up with to help you build a business or build your multiple streams of income without tearing down your lifestyle, you have to think about your capacity. I mentioned that. What time do you actually have to put toward this without doing too much? It's not about what you could do. What time is actually readily available for you right now? Is it sustainable? That was the issue I fell into with the career coaching. It was fun and I could do it and I was getting clients, but I couldn't commit to showing up like that week after week, month after month. So is it sustainable through multiple seasons, the busy seasons, the tired seasons, the kids got a lot going on seasons, like all the things. And then is it in alignment? And I mentioned that with, you know, me trying to stack another business on top of the real estate business that I'm actually already doing. So that's the alignment check. How much energy does it take? For me, coming to YouTube and sharing my journey, it doesn't really take that much energy. Like I discovered that, like I literally can turn on the camera. I know the story. It's my experience. It's not a lot of effort. It's what do I want to share? Turn it on and say it. And so it's not a ton of energy and I don't edit because that's a pitfall that people could fall into as well. Over editing, trying to make something super produced. If you are an editor and if video editing is beneficial to what you're already doing, then maybe you can do that without too much energy. But I don't have time to edit. I'm just here to deliver a message. And editing is actually not all that important for what I'm trying to do for my type of content. How do you keep it simple is the 5th thing is how do you oversimplify this thing? And I think for me, I've made it a completely oversimplified by, let's see, I look at my week, what's actually going on? What am I actually doing this week? What ideas did I have? What lessons did I learn? What happened that could be useful to somebody else? And that's what I move with. And so that's the lesson. And that's, where my product ideas come from. And it's just this ecosystem of not overproduce, not overdoing, not overthinking. Like I don't have to schedule time to come up with ideas. It's like, no, what's actually happening? Keep it very simple. And then of course, number 6, what systems do you have in place? For me, I'm using AI to simplify a lot of things. I have a content agent. I have 6 agents for the real estate business. I have all sorts of automation in place because what I know is that I can be everywhere at once. I'm not clicking a bunch of buttons. I'm not trying to do anything manual that I don't have to do. And that's what continues to fuel and give me the energy to show up here and record. Because if I had, if I was still manually responding to tenants or I was still manually approving every work order or insert thing that I could be doing, I wouldn't have the energy to build anything on top of it. So it's like, what aspects of what you're doing every day need human intervention? And if it doesn't, you got to put a system in place because the lack of system is the number one way you will burn out. So of course, I still 100% believe and am a huge fan of building multiple streams of income. I've been laid off twice. You cannot depend on one income. You never know what corporate is actually going to do. You cannot control that. So I'm a huge fan of multiple streams of income. But I think especially high achievers who you literally can do anything you want to do doesn't mean you should do anything because you still want to maintain some level of balance. And so you want to be intentional about what you put yourself into. Because I think the other thing that nobody's talking about is when you put yourself out there saying you're going to do a thing, there's this sunk cost feeling that I can't quit. And I've quit multiple things. And so that kind of keeps you, it keeps pushing you forward and you stay in a thing longer than you should have. So to prevent all that, put those 6 things into perspective and build something that's actually going to work long term. My name is Jerry. And if you're still here, do me a favor, go ahead and give that like button a smash. Keep building that confidence and make sure you keep building that cash. I make videos for ambitious people who want to build a life on their own terms. And if you want a behind the scenes look at my business, you can follow me over on Substack at Confidence is Cash. And I create what I call an ASAP for every single episode. And there's a link in the description to get access to that. It comes with it's the shortcut, the cheat code to all the steps, the action. It's the playbook to everything I said in this episode. So there's a link in the description if you'd like a copy of that. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.